This time on the Highland Woodworker, we're taking a good look at wood slabs, introducing you to a furniture maker who makes extraordinary pieces with them, and telling you what you need to know when picking a slab out for your next project. Plus, Fine Woodworking Magazine's Matt Kenney has the finer points of making miters without a table saw and without tear out.
Decided that I was going to switch gears, and the furniture thing somewhat fell in my lap.
Meet the former Nashville music man who now prefers tuning up his woodworking instruments instead. Spend a moment with furniture maker and marquetry expert, Worth Squire. These stories and more, this time on the Highland Woodworker. Hello, I'm Charles Brock, and I'm a Highland Woodworker. I just love coming to Highland Woodworking in Atlanta, Georgia. It's where I get my fine woodworking tools and a great woodworking education. Well, hello, Ed Sin.
Hey, Chuck, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great. Nice to see you. Ed, I have a student who's learning to cut dovetails. He's in the market for a fine dovetail saw. Have you got something that would help?
I think we'll have just the saw for him. We have some amazing saws by a company called Bad Axe, and they make an amazing dovetail saw.
That sounds great. But first, we're at Little Branch Farm, where my friend Kelly Maxwell has a great selection of slabs for woodworkers. He builds his own wonderful furniture, but he can sell them to you too. Let's go inside and see what he has for us today. Well, hello, Kelly.
Hey, Chuck, how you doing today?
Great. It's nice to see you, and I'm excited to be here.
Good to have you.
Look at this.
Yeah, that's a Claro walnut dining room table there.
Well,
natural live edge.
It is just beautiful. The live edge and the big slab of wood. Now, slabs have been around
Forever,
a long
man.
time.
They go back to even ancient Greece. They've had slab furniture was actually in some of the homes they found in ancient Greece, remnants of it.
And in the last century, George Nakashima kind of brought it to the forefront as he would work with a slab like this by hand to release its soul, I guess.
Correct. George did a great job in actually bringing it out to the forefront in mid-century design.
Well, it's just beautiful, and of course the live edge kind of connects you with nature.
Yeah, I mean, and live edge is, you know, a lot of people think live edge is the bark side of the tree, and actually it's just the outside edge without the bark on. Really, you don't want to leave the bark on. It introduces a whole other element of issues, bugs, and everything else.
Well, it's not only for big tables like this beauty, it's for
Custom beds here, yeah. I mean, we got a big burl slab here. It's a redwood burl. It's got a lot of lace and ornate figurement in it. And this came out of a root system of a tree that was cut down pre-1960. We can't cut down the old growth trees, but the root systems were left behind on the forest floor. And this is one of them.
This is a similar kind of slab, is that right?
Yeah, this is a buckeye burl out of a root of a buckeye. They have a lot of ornate issues. You have to watch bugs. These can be heavily infested with bugs, so you want to treat that.
And this shows these beautiful burl nodules.
Yeah, it's burl nodules, the burl tits on the outside, and then the ornate pattern comes off from what's on the outside is manifest on the inside of the slab. And the cool part about the root is you end up with the bark also, and you'll end up with rocks and anything else inside the burl.
Anything that the tree grew up around.
Correct. Here's big leaf maple burl. We actually mounted this one onto a western cedar root to make it as a coffee table. Love the pattern in this. It actually went through a little bit of aging. It's got a little bit of spalting pattern in it. You're showing the unique burl and stuff. Some bark intrusions into it because it was out of a unique burl in the way it grew into each other.
That's wonderful. Now, over here is an example of a more contemporary way, more of an industrial look.
Yeah, this is actually forged out by my blacksmith. He's welded, cut the steel, pounded it, put it through his forge to actually create that natural patina that's on the outside of it. And this has got a Claro walnut slab on top of it with the live edge.
And over here you can see that, is that filled?
Yeah, I like to leave my stuff a little more natural looking, and I might pour a little bit of a resin down into it. We're still doing a couple of things with this here, but we fill a little bit of resin down in here, but the checks, that's all part of it. Yeah, here's some example of some of the resin work that I've done on a bar top here, where I've filled in some knots. When it's actually sanded out, here's one that I've already finished predominantly. It just looks like it's a clean, blacked out knot.
Oh yeah.
But it's solid. You don't have to worry about where the knots want to. When it's drying, the drying process, a lot of times the knots will crinkle up. Sometimes they'll pop out completely. Other problems, this is the way to solve that. This is a live edge that I carved here, so a man-made live edge right here. And then it transitions across to the natural live edge. I decided that I didn't really want to stain this one out. I wanted to leave it more. I did some low light stains into my deep crevices. But then when I came out here, where I sanded, it took off some of the highlights, so the color tone blends really well across it. This is actually a big slab hanging vanity with a vessel sink set on top of it. We'll have chains that'll hook up here that are forged out by my blacksmith that will be a hanging vanity. So it's a 6-inch thick slab.
Well, Kelly, how do you know that a slab is for you? If a woodworker goes out to look at one, what do they look for?
What do you look for? Number one, you look for a dry slab. Where was it stored at? Was it stored outside, just out in somebody's barn, or out, not even in a barn, just sitting out in the field, not covered up, out in the weather and everything else? It's gonna have some issues with wood. Do you see bug damage in it? Do you see other things like that in it? How was it treated and how was it cared for? Those are the biggest things. I buy the vast majority of my wood wet. I buy it when it was first milled. I sit on it a long time and I let it air dry. That way I can watch it through the whole history of the slab's life after it left being part of the tree. You want your slab to be at least 10% moisture content, if possible. Does it have to be kiln dried? No. Air dried wood is just as good, if not better, than
Color's
kiln dried.
better.
Color's better. The elasticity of the wood is better. It's easier to work with. It's not going to splinter out on you. I just worked some kiln dried slabs for a client just recently, and every time I cut it, the wood was just splintering and popping everywhere because it was so stiff. The wood had no energy to it anymore. It had lost that. Things that I look for, let's step over here and look at a couple of these little burls and kind of talk about tabletops and slabs. All right, this here is a curly redwood. You can see some of the grain pattern. What I look for in this stuff is I'm looking at shape. Is it going to be sellable? Or can I shape it to a size? This one here has live edge around here, but we did a rough shape on it with the chainsaw early on this outside edge that'll allow for it during its drying period to gain a little bit of patina, and then we can finish shaping it when it comes time to put it into a final slab.
That's interesting.
This slab here is still wet. I know this slab was cut about 6 months ago. It's got at least 2 more years, 2.5 years before it's going to be dry and ready to use. This slab right here has live edge all the way around it. This is the tan oak burl. You can see there's some bug damage in this. We know that there's bugs in this one here. The bark was left on it a long time.
So how do you treat it if there's...
We use a borax out on the West Coast in our mill out there. We use a total natural stuff that's actually been working quite well to kill the bugs inside the burl. That way you don't have to stick it into a kiln and mess up your color tones, mess up your elasticity of the wood and your stability of the wood. You know, just letting it long and slow and watching it.
Well, that's wonderful. Can you show us your process for actually working with the wood and working with the edge?
Sure. I'll show you some of the stuff we work with the edge. What you want to do is you want to let the machine do the work. You're following the natural contours, or I'm looking at what I'm seeing over here, and I'm creating an edge that's similar. I still got a lot of work to do on this to get it to where I would want it to be, but I can make something that's very similar to the rest of the edge of the tree. The only thing I wish I had was just a 1/4 inch more depth. But
And then the whole piece would fall away.
Whole piece would fall away. But I can come back now with my jigsaw and trim that up, and then I can surface it down and do any final cuts that I would need to do.
Kelly, this has been a joy.
It's been a pleasure having you here, Chuck.
Chuck, this is the handsaw I was telling you about from Bad Axe Toolworks.
I love the name Bad Axe. Yes.
12-inch dovetail and small tenon saw with 14 points per inch. We also have a 12-inch stiletto dovetail saw and a 16-inch tenon saw.
But this does 2 jobs, is that correct?
Right, it'll allow you to do your dovetail work as well as some joinery work, cutting tenons for small scale work.
So this is like 2 saws in one.
It is. It's, if you can have one handsaw, this would be the one to have.
So this should be great for my student. I'm going to purchase it, take it back to my shop, and give it a try, and hopefully I'll be able to recommend it to it.
You should enjoy it.
Coming up, is the jig mightier than the saw when it comes to making miters? Fine Woodworking's Matt Kenney shares his angle.
There it goes.
Master furniture maker Worth Squire demonstrates a marquetry technique that is sure to leave a lasting impression. You're watching the Highland Woodworker.
I'm just an average, down-to-earth woodworker. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably about a 5. But one place I score a perfect 10 is right here, and I plan on keeping all 10. That's why I have a saw-stop table saw. And there's more. Plenty of power, superior dust collection, and absolute accuracy. These features have made it the best-selling cabinet saw in America. Let Highland Woodworking help you put a saw-stop in your shop.
Are your tools TORMEK sharp? TORMEK, consistent, reliable, and razor sharp. TORMEK, sharpening innovation. Introducing the ultimate flush trim router bit by Whiteside. Get CNC quality cuts from your patterns every time. Whiteside, industrial grade and American made.
Woodpeckers, makers of fine woodworking tools like router tables, precision router lifts and fences, plus measuring and layout tools including squares, ovals, triangles, and more. We offer unique clamps like box clamps, the knuckle clamp, and X-Mat system. Our one-time tool program offers woodworkers innovative new tools. Woodpecker's precision tools are made and tested using state-of-the-art equipment. Woodworking tools from Woodpeckers. Tools you can trust for generations to come.
Woodworkers count on American-made forest saw blades for smooth, quiet cuts every time, without splintering, scratching, or tear-outs. The famous Woodworker 2 is the all-purpose combination blade. But for special cuts, Woodworker 2s are available for cutting dovetails, for flat-bottom joinery. A 30-tooth blade is perfect for ripping, a 48-tooth blade for superior cross cuts, and a finger joint blade set. There is a perfect Forest Woodworker 2 for every table saw cut. Highland Woodworking has been a leader in woodworking education for more than 30 years. They offer all kinds of woodworking classes year-round, ranging from how to hand-cut dovetails and mortises to how to sharpen a plane or a chisel, how to build a cabinet, a chair, or a bookcase, or how to turn a wooden bowl. There are classes on wood finishing, French polishing, and even antique furniture restoration. For a list of upcoming classes that may interest you, just look in their catalog or go to highlandwoodworking.com. Matt, the scale of these miters is small.
Very small, yes.
And I would be kind of intimidated by cutting those miters on a table saw. How do you do it and keep it so clean? Do you use the table saw or another method?
I don't use the table saw in parts this small. I use a custom shooting jig that I made for my block planes. And it creates the entire miter on the jig, and you get a nice smooth surface that's great for glue afterwards. You want me to show you how to do it?
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, so this is, a small, could be the small end of a box. And I'm gonna put it in this jig here, and what the jig is a piece of plywood for the base, cut at 45 degrees, and then these two rails, which are also cut at 45, and down underneath, it's just another piece of plywood which allows me to clamp it into my vise and hold it up at a comfortable angle.
So it's a shooting board.
It is a shooting board, absolutely. It's a type of shooting board. And I've got a Destaco style clamp on top. And I'm just gonna put that piece in. Clamp it down. And I normally use two different block planes when I'm doing this. I use a small apron plane set for coarse shaving to waste away most of the material quickly. And then I switch over to a adjustable mouth block plane that's set for very fine shaving. Maybe too fine right there. And that's going to let me get a really nice, smooth, there we go.
Now let me see how this is set up here. Now that is a finely set mouth there.
Yeah, I want to get it as light as shaving as I can and keep the mouth really tight to minimize any tear out that might come about. But a sharp block plane on end grain, usually there's no tear out or any even chip out on the back edge because of the way the jig is set up. There's always a sort of zero clearance effect there, so you're keeping the grain intact. And these miters that you end up with are very smooth, cleaner than I can get from a table saw blade, and the point is always sharp with no tear out. So when you bring that together in a box, you get a nice clean miter that is gap free and glues up wonderfully.
And that'll make you smile.
Every time it does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
To me, the holy grail of the whole thing is to build something nobody's ever seen before.
A moment with master furniture maker Worth Squire when we come back. You're watching the Highland Woodworker. Highland Woodworking stocks a wide selection of Rikon power tools, known for their innovative design and rugged durability. Highland has sold thousands of Rikon's industry-leading bandsaws with sizes to fit every woodworking need, from the compact, affordable 10-inch model to competitively priced 14 and 18-inch models. Shop us also for Rikon's reliable planers, lathes, and professional low-speed grinder, all with an exceptional 5-year warranty. Rikon Power Tools.
For 35 years, Lee has manufactured the world's best joinery jigs. From our award-winning dovetail jigs and mortise and tenon jigs, to newer innovations like router table jigs. Easily add strong, beautiful joinery to your woodworking pieces, like half-blind dovetails, box joints, mortise and tenon joints, and through dovetails. Lee, simply the easiest and most versatile router joinery jigs.
If you can't make it to Highland Woodworking in Atlanta, Georgia, you can shop online at highlandwoodworking.com. They're great at getting what you want to your shop quick. Moment with the Master is brought to you by Woodpeckers. Tucked in the hills of Middle Tennessee sits Worth Squire's workshop, an impressive space with plenty of precision tools to assist an amazing artist. Although Worth always had a knack for building things, the music bug bit him first.
I came to Tennessee to do the singer-songwriter thing and had a recording studio and built the recording studio myself, and then, which was a fascinating process. And then I had sold a couple of businesses, and Elizabeth and I had moved out to the country and decided that I was going to switch gears, and the furniture thing somewhat fell in my lap.
A fortunate encounter with world-renowned period furniture maker Alf Sharp completely changed everything. Working with someone like Alf, you can learn a heck of a lot, and Worth soaked up every bit of it. Worth has gone on to become an accomplished furniture maker and master at marquetry. His detailed designs are every bit as hard to pull off as you would imagine, showing off impressive craftsmanship on every level.
Well, these chairs are my design of a country Chippendale chair that has, because of the way the splat needs to be built to go into the legs, it's a much, much more complicated joinery than your typical country Chippendale chair might be. But I came up with this design and then foolishly tried to build it. Because it's got, I guess, 16 tenons, mortise and tenon joints in it. But this is all a bent lamination of shop resawn walnut. This is Franklin, Tennessee walnut. And that's what allows it to be stable and not tear the chair apart from wood movement. Now, I'm real proud that the Tennessee State Museum bought one of these for their permanent collection.
Well, they're lucky to have it. Well, this is a beautiful cabinet here. I just love the whole thing, especially the marquetry. You want to tell me about it?
I built this piece for a furniture exhibition about 12 or 14 years ago. And it was another piece where I designed it on paper and had no idea what I was biting off. It has, I believe that we counted it, has I think 268 pieces of wood in it. And the leaves are all aniline dye stained and sand shaded. And this wood is all spalted maple, which I was enamored with the fact that the spalted maple looked so much like the deteriorating leaves. And I particularly love, every now and then there's some serendipity where you get something that just really works. And this part right here with the shadow of the stem across that just really, I'm sometimes amazed that I managed to do that. Then of course there are other parts of it that I don't want to point out.
Well, I bet when little Worth Squire went to elementary school, I bet you had already started doing some of the things that made you into such a craftsman.
Well, you know, I actually was the poster child for the fact that the schools don't get kids that don't learn the same way everybody else does. So I was a train wreck in school. I was sitting in my classes in school doing these incredibly elaborate line drawings of classic cars. And I got in all sorts of trouble over and over again. But of course, nobody ever said, gee, this kid is really good at this art thing. We ought to encourage him in that more. My parents were both authors and artists, so they encouraged me in the way they could. I had a pretty difficult time in school, and the one thing that I did like and focus on was shop, back in the days when there was shop in schools. And I went to a particular school later where one of the, well, it was a Quaker school in the mountains of North Carolina. And when we showed up, they said, okay, we're gonna, they divvied up who was living in what dorm. And they said to my group of kids, okay, you go out behind the dining room and there's a lean-to. And there was this lean-to, and they said, this is gonna be our dorm until you finish building it. And they had bought this shell house. And so all the kids, this would have been, you know, September in the mountains of North Carolina. So we really had to get that building so that it was habitable as quickly as we could. We had tremendous instigation because it was cold. And so we did all of the plumbing and electrical and sheetrock and flooring and everything. And that was where I really first learned to work with my hands intensively.
Well, what was the transition from building things more construction or rudimentary into building the beautiful furniture and marquetry that you do today?
Well, you know, my father was always really into fine furniture, and his older brother, my Uncle Jack, had been a furniture designer, and actually a really highfalutin furniture designer. So I saw some of Jack's pieces. My uncle had died when I was quite young, so I never knew him well. But he was a very serious furniture maker and sculptor. And so that reverence for that was inculcated into me when I was a little kid. In doing something like this, one of the methods that you can do is called bevel technique. And what I've figured out is that I can take these pieces of veneer and put them together temporarily. You have to be pretty, you don't have to be very accurate with this or very, you know, it's not something that's going to be permanent, so it doesn't, you can be pretty sloppy. What I do is just put it together like that with a couple of these, and then I won't work with that for maybe half an hour. But a half an hour later, then I've got something like this that's just two pieces of veneer sandwiched together. So now, you can do all sorts of intricate inside cuts, or, you know, it's part of the thing with the scroll saw and being in too much of a hurry here. You want to let it come back to center. You want to let the scroll saw rest. Worst thing you can do with a scroll saw is push too hard. I'm just going to release my double-sided tape.
All right.
And usually the veneers want to curl in a separate way. Oh, incidentally, these are my very favorite tweezers. I love these tweezers. They've got little diamond grit in them. See, that just comes apart. And dry it off. You have to be a little careful with this about introducing too much moisture in the process, because it certainly can cause you problems about it getting unstable if you do. Yeah, just there it goes. Now, you got to be careful there. See, I glued it to the iron. You want to be careful about not letting that happen. But then, and obviously this is just a haphazard shape that I made to show the process, but then if I dry this off, and I put that in there, so it fits just like a glove.
Yes, perfect fit.
It is, and you know, you have to be a little careful with intricate things because your pieces can come apart. But if you're working on something and you can hide glue this right down to something right away, then you know, it becomes really stable. But so I used this process. One of the things that you can do with this is you can then take these pieces and put them again on another piece of backing veneer. And you can do another piece of the bevel technique to make a very fine point in something. Like if you come in this part and you do another piece right in here, you'll get a very, very fine point in this by inlaying another piece alongside it.
Behind us, we have a piece that you're working on. It looks like a painting.
This piece I spent way more time on the frame than I did on the image in the middle. The image in the middle is almost designed to trick you into forgetting the frame until you suddenly realize the frame is not three-dimensional. The Greek key in the pattern that goes around the outside is, I've seen that Greek key used many times, and I've never seen it where it resolved itself perfectly in the entire perimeter of
It wasn't
something.
kind of just chopped off.
Right, it's always the corners are just mitered where they don't really fit together, or at the middle of the top or the bottom or the sides, it just has a haphazard join. And I set my mind to the idea that I wanted to make that Greek key resolve itself completely around. And I succeeded in doing it, but I almost sent for the men in the white coats, or my wife almost sent for the men in the white coats before I was done, because it was quite a process.
From perfecting framed art design to crafting an accurate New Lebanon rocker, Worth Squire's wide variety of wonderful work continues to open eyes and turn heads.
You know, to me, the holy grail of the whole thing is to build something nobody's ever seen before. And I think that's a very, very rare thing to be able to do. I think there are those furniture makers every now and again who manage to do it. You know, I think the Chippendales of this world, or Krenov, or people who come up with a style, you know, that then becomes associated with them. Well, I don't think I'm going to do that, but I would like to create maybe something that nobody's ever seen before. That would be very satisfying to me.
Well, this is the 12-inch Bad Axe saw. It's a dovetail saw. You can also cut a tenon cheek with it. And 12 inches is longer than the average dovetail saw. The idea that Mark Harrell has, who is the maker of this saw, is that longer would give you fewer strokes and thus more accuracy. So let's give it a whirl and see what it'll do. That's excellent. What I love about this saw already, just doing some test cuts, is I love the length, 12 inches. I think Mark Harrell is right. It gives you a little bit more. And that helps you with your accuracy. Also, just like Isaac Newton found out, gravity can work for you. And the weight of the saw helps to make those nice straight cuts. So I know my student is going to enjoy it. And I really like the Bad Axe 12-inch dovetail and small tenon saw. Improve your woodworking experience. Sign up for Wood News Online, a monthly newsletter showcasing the latest news, tips, and classes Highland Woodworking has to offer. By signing up, you'll receive the latest episode of the Highland Woodworker, special store promotions, and Wood News Online delivered straight to your inbox. Sign up today. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Follow us on our social media channels as well. And until next time, I'm Charles Brock, and I'm a Highland Woodworker.